here that the railroad ever got built. After the war, because by 1861, the rail line had left from St. Louis and had only made it as far as Rolla. So if you wanted to get to St. Louis, you had to get a stagecoach, or you had to take a, some horse or whatever to get all the way up to Rolla to make it into St. Louis. Well, after the war was finally over, we had General Fremont. We all know Fremont because we have Fremont Road. General Fremont was given the go-ahead to expand the rail line. Now, the problem was General Fremont was a great general. He was a horrible, horrible businessman. He only expanded the line 13 times. So it was a total failure. And they said, all right, buddy, we're taking it back. Now, what was interesting was Mr. Boyd had been connected with Mr. Fremont. And he stayed with the Frisco for many years helping expand the line. And he took advantage of his knowledge, which you'll soon see. So if you look at this, any of you who have ever ridden a train, especially out to California, this kind of mimics part of the Union Pacific run and the Missouri Pacific run. They actually, the Missouri Pacific and the Frisco split apart later on, and that's what the run you kind of see here, but this is really more the route of the California Zephyr if you've ever ridden it from Chicago. So this would have been one of the coaches you would have possibly taken, a stagecoach, to catch the line up in Rolla. This is actually one that was taken outside of Kansas City, but this was very similar to what they had. I could not even begin to imagine what it would have been like trying to ride one of these things from here to Rolla. Driving it is an adventure, but riding this on stagecoach would be something. So after they took the line back, the line then fell under a new company called the South Pacific Rail Company. That was still part of the Atlantic and Pacific Railroad. And what was interesting about the Atlantic and Pacific Railroad, they actually started building lines of it out west, headed our way. And they were continuing to build, even though we were floundering here in Missouri. So as we can see, as we come here, here's Rolla. And then we're trying to get here to Lebanon. Now, Lebanon is interesting because we hit Lebanon in 1869. So we're 1 year away from making it to Springfield. The person who is a very interesting person, Andrew Pierce. Now, Mr. Pierce was hired by the gentleman who owned the Frisco out on the East Coast. And he was his Missouri man. And his job was to go from town to town to town and figure out where the line was going to run, where they were going to build the stations, and so on and so forth. For the most part, between Rolla and here, most of the towns just popped up after they laid the lines. But as they got closer and closer to Springfield, Springfield already had a downtown square. The problem was that when you're looking at the rail line, it wasn't going really near downtown. So he said, I'll tell you what, I'll build it towards downtown, closer to where the mill and main station was. But you got to pay me $25,000. And the city of Springfield said, you're out of your mind. There's no way we're going to give you that. You promised you would build a railroad. And they said, yes, I'll build a railroad. We're just not going to build it there. So what happened, Mr. Boyd, who we talked about before, teamed up with Mr. Harwood. Now, Mr. Harwood, we'll be talking about him in other talks too. The two brothers are very well known in Springfield because one helped a lot with Commercial Street. The other brother was very heavily connected with building Missouri College. And then we have T.T. Roberson, Dr. Roberson. Mr. Roberson actually owned most of the land that we're sitting on today. They had approached him and said, what if we took all this land that you own and we made a new town? And not only do we make a new town, but we offer part of this to the railroad. So that's what they came up with. They said, we will give you the right of way to the middle of our new town. We'll give you the right of way for 2 new stations. We'll give you 40 acres to build your rail shops. And we'll give you a half interest in the new town. Well, this was a no-brainer. It's like, they're getting all this, and he didn't have to pay for it. You're done. So that's what happened. So if you live in this part of Springfield, sometimes you're going to see on your title work, you'll see behind the title was. That means original plat. This is the original plat of North Springfield. Stopping at Atlantic Street, stopping at Division. Of course, we have the Atlantic Street Division because that was the division from North and South Springfield. And we have Washington Square, we have Lafayette Square. Franklin, don't know whatever happened to it, never saw anything on it. Up here we have the 40 acres that the rail line was given to basically build the Frisco, what we call the North Shops. And then there's a little bitty passenger station at the end of Benton. So, May 3rd, 1870, the train makes it all the way from St. Louis down here with tons of dignitaries. Phelps was down here to talk. We had a lot of people. It was a big, big day. And you have to think about it. This was the first time we actually had speedy transportation all the way from Springfield to St. Louis. And it was a big deal. The problem was if you left here, it took almost 12 to 14 hours to get to St. Louis. Because these little things ate tons of wood, let alone eventually getting into coal and then having water towers along the way. So, in 1873, they started building these shops, massive shops that they would eventually have up here. Guys were making $2.50 a day. Now, you would think that's not a lot of money. That was a bunch of money up here compared to what other people were making. So $2.50 a day. They built a roundhouse, machine shop, so on and so forth. As the yards continued to grow, we started getting more and more locomotives. 10-wheelers were quite popular at the time, and we got blessed because we had photographers that like hanging around up here. This shot is really rare. It's rare for a couple of reasons. One, it's showing the smaller roundhouse that hadn't been expanded yet. It's also very rare because this 10-wheeler is a 3-piston engine. There's actually a 3rd piston right there. And it was kind of a cool concept, but it was horrible to maintain. So we date this somewhere around 1898 because it wasn't in service very long. And as I mentioned, photographers like hanging around up here, so we have photographers on Commercial Street, we have them down on Penn. Since these guys made good money, they like hanging around the rail yard taking selfies of the people up here. And they did it all the time. And we're blessed to have these pictures. Not every town has these, but we're quite blessed to have them. So by 1902, 1910, the rail yards expanded tremendously. As I mentioned before, the roundhouse over here is now doubled in size. Again, the usage here is phenomenal. Also by this time, the Frisco had acquired the Kansas City Fort Scott, and it was called the Gulf, Memphis, and then mobile rail line. And that particular rail line created the X, as we know the Frisco lines, running basically from Kansas City to Pensacola, from St. Louis down to about Dallas, but connected all the way to San Antonio. This is a really cool shot because this was taken by Harry Morgan, who had a studio up here. Mr. Morgan, this was really fascinating about this shot was this was a glass 8x10 negative that the city owned, and they were throwing away. They called the Greene County Archives up and said, I don't know if you won this stuff or not, but we got a box of these old negatives. Would you like them? Thank God they saved it. It's the only one we have. What's really cool about this shot, we are looking east down the main line, and we're looking over here to Commercial Street. Of course, none of this exists today, but it's really a cool snapshot. This was taken around 1899. And like I said, the guys loved getting their pictures taken, and so even the white collar managers would get in on the act from time to time. This was a brand new locomotive that just showed up, and they decided to get their picture on. So now we're really going to focus more on the boys in the North Yard. I've been blessed as I've been doing all this history stuff to have a lot of families connect with me and ask, would you like to have copies of family members that were taken up here? And it's absolutely, because a lot of these just don't exist. And being in real estate, I run into scenarios all the time where people have passed away, kids move in, they don't know if anybody wants this stuff, and it all gets thrown away. So I grab and scan as much of it as I can. I love this shot for several reasons. One, this shows you the people that lived in our community up here, both in Midtown and up in the Woodland Heights area surrounding Commercial Street. This is a picture of the coach painters and then the coach carpenters, and they're a happy bunch. If you have a mustache and smile, if you didn't, you kind of look constipated. But then these guys. Now, the blacksmiths, they're an honorary bunch. But then you got this guy way over here with the shitty grin on his face. And again, like I said, the photographers would hang around up there and just document all sorts of stuff. We have Leslie Williams, who is actually an incredible drawer and photographer, and he'll be in another talk I'll talk about. But he'd come up here to take pictures, like a safety picture. This was kind of cool because you can see here is a traditional old railroader. Back then, you knew the old railroader by the amount of digits they were missing. He lost his hand. He just didn't their time punch block. What's really cool with these shots, I've had a family give me some of these shots. These were actually shot inside some of these buildings and machine shops that are up here on Commercial Street. And this one was one of their own renting buildings that they had. They were up there. They would service. They didn't build too much up here, but they did a lot of servicing and rebuilding of the engines. This little pulley system thing you see here, the metal up here running down. If you've ever been to Silver Dollar City where they make all the wood and they got all the belts flying around, that's what that was for. Now, they were a very ingenious bunch because the Frisco was never a wealthy railroad. It was never like the Union Pacific and the Santa Fe and so forth. So they would come up with creative ways to do things. Up here at the top, they just took a Billy Goat steam engine that was upright and connected it to a rail car. That was their rail inspection car that they would run up and down the tracks with. But this thing here, now this was genius. They didn't like wheels. So they came up with this really cool thing. They filled this thing with gasoline and lighted it, and flames would pour out as they were going down the rails, killing all the grass and the weeds. There's a problem with that though. Railroad ties can burn. So they didn't much time trying to melt the railroad ties, they were the weeds, so it only lasted. Well, up here, the supervisors were the ones that typically had, of course, some of the bigger houses that we had up here. But they were supervisors of all different things. They could be accountants, they could be VPs of the line, and they typically were living down here in Midtown. We didn't have too many of the supervisors living up in Woodland Heights. By the time we switched into about 1910, 1950, 1920, Midtown became more desirable than being up in Woodland Heights because Woodland Heights was the #1 subdivision in the 1870s. What was fun is we have pictures like this. This was a family that would get their haircut up here on Commercial Street. Now, what a cool barbershop is this, okay? But they not only did you get your haircut there, you could get a massage, you could go there maybe after work and get a bath or take a shower. But no women, only men. And this one's really a fun picture too because this is a one time that your boss and you are at equal level. You can play rule and you can beat him. Just remember, when you walked across the street, he was still your boss. Now, the Frisco, because it was the largest employer in Springfield at the time, at their maximum, they had 4,000 employees. And they really loved Commercial Street and what they had up there building-wise. This was a scene that was basically commercial would be over here, but they had these beautiful gardens, the Frisco line, all done in rock. It was just an incredible sight that they had up there. And this is one of my favorite shots. I bought this on eBay. There was a book, I bought it out of Colorado, and it was an accountant who actually lived in Midtown on Lynn Street. There's about 80 pictures in there. And this was one of them that was in there. This is the whole reason I bought the crazy thing. And this was his daughter, their cousin, visiting him at the shops, rolling around in this engine. Now, Oshie would have a cow in his neck. But, and the little girl, she was fearless. Get called around the one, again, another group, another family members that gave me some pictures. Vicki Morton actually lived on Commercial Street. Now, a lot of us can't imagine ever having a house and living on Commercial Street, but back in the day, it was clean like every other place around here. And Vicki started off a long, long time ago. He worked almost 50 years for the Frisco. He actually was one of the several engineers that were for the famed Chadwick Flyer that ran from Springfield all the way down to Chadwick and back. He got enough years in that in 1936, the Frisco, and believe it or not, here in Springfield, we used to build locomotives. This was built at the West Shops in 1936. It's a mountain class. It's a heavier mountain compared to what we had with the 1522, something made to be familiar with that engine. So he was the pride of his life was to have this engine. It wasn't uncommon because of railroad laws, and depending on how much time he had, his wife may have to drive to Monette or Lebanon to pick him up because he had his hours in it. So he actually had a car where she could drive and come get him to do that. And it was interesting because up here where it says Frisco Cafe, apparently there were multiple Frisco Cafes here in Missouri. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint which one she stopped getting at. So in 1938, believe it or not, this was off of Commercial Street. To put this in context, this is Amcon, that warehouse is still standing out here, the red brick warehouse, and the rest of this is all the Frisco. We still have the roundhouse over here, we have Commercial Street running down here, and that would be Chase across the top. And Linville over here, this is from his family, we're gracious to have this. This is one of the few rare movies that was ever taken from the Jefferson Footbridge looking down at the yards. We're going to be heading west. Now we're looking east towards the Coaling Tower and the Red House. And this is the worship environment. So what was interesting is during World War II, because the Frisco was an X in the middle of the country, and Oklahoma still had lots of oil, oil transfer from here down to Pensacola for war effort was paramount. And they ran the railroad at full force. We were blessed to have a couple of unique pictures up here because up here we have 1522, some of you may be familiar with that. That engine is resting up in the Museum of Transport in St. Louis. It was restored and ran for a while. In the early 2000s, they had to kind of mothball it, but it's still up there. We have the one here in the middle that was actually built here, and then 4504, the northern, that is the sister engine to the one that's over in Grand Beach Park. So if you ever seen 4524, this is one of the other engines. This is another one that was built over here. And what's neat about this shot is we were actually looking down and you can see the Jefferson Avenue footbridge down here. Same thing with this one with the Coaling Tower. And again, this is a sister engine to the one that's in Grand Beach Park if you're ever over there. This one as well. Well, if you grew up in Springfield in the 40s and 50s, you got to see a site that most of us didn't like to see. Diesel engines were starting to come in. And so the Frisco decided to start scrapping a lot of locomotives. And there was a steam graveyard, if you will, up and down. You either see it off the Chase or you see it off the Commercial. They just park locomotive after locomotive back to back to back. Then they also park a lot of them out of the west yards. because they thought after World War II there was a good chance we were going to have World War III. And they also thought that Korea could escalate and get quite big, and they wanted to be able to have that extra steam power if they needed it, in case they just didn't have enough diesel for them. By 1948, these things start showing up. Wish they had, but they did. Some people love them, some people hate them, but they were just ways of the future. The president of the Frisco Railroad made a conscious effort at that time that he was going to be the first Class A railroad to dieselize the entire line. And that's exactly what they did. By 1951, you can look over here at the roundhouse and you don't see hardly any activity at all because diesels don't need roundhouses. They can run forwards and backwards without being turned. 1953, the cooling tower comes down. Hadn't been up that long, it was just the record of the Cold War. This is 1968. Everything's gone. This is what we have today. So today, the Thai company that's over there perfectly outlines the rail yards. And you can see part of the line still running through it. So for those of you that come over here and get scrap wood burned at your house, and they do that if you don't know that, they cut beautiful ties and they have all the scrap wood. And Jerry and I talked about this. A lot of people go gather this wood up to burn. But that's all that is left of the North Yards. The only thing that remains from that era, from about the 1890s, is that Ancom building. So, what else did the Frisco bring to town? Well, you come to town on the train, you need a place to stay. So he ended up having the Ozark Hotel. And there was a old one and a new one. The original one, here we got Harwood again, Dunlap and Harwood. They decide that they're going to build this thing, and they built it out of wood. It cost them a grand total of $30,000 to build it, not furnish. And that's not the dandy, but Springfield has a little bitty problem. We tend to burn stuff around. And it caught fire and it burned down. Well, 65,000 lost, they had it insured for $24,000. Same old song. So, 1878, they rebuilt it. What was really interesting was the Frisco decided to put their offices there. And they basically took over the top floor. They wanted that tower so they could get up there and look down at the rail yards. So they stayed there. And the interesting thing is around 1910, John Woodruff ends up building the Frisco building on the side of the old, I call it Central High School, but the original Springfield High School. And ends up leasing the building to them. That was an unfortunate thing for this particular building because they really never got the clientele in it after the Frisco moved out. And it was a beautiful building and many people stopped in. Unfortunately, another fire. This thing just can't stay up. So finally, I read lots of articles on it, and unfortunately that fire so damaged it, it was almost impossible to save it. It was just not sound. The guy went in multiple times trying to figure out a way to save it, and everybody said it's just too much money, just let it go. So finally in 1931, the city just deemed it too unsafe, and they just leveled it. So today, we have a lovely parking lot, and I don't know when that gas station was put in. Does anybody have any idea? You remember when the gas station was put in? Because it seems like maybe the 60s, 70s, I don't know, but and the gas station's been gone as long as I can remember. But today, that's pretty much all that's left. So, this thing is really interesting to me, this Frisco Railroad Station, because we have, between myself, the History Museum, and other people, we have only 4 pictures that exist of this station. I have no idea why. There should be hundreds of them out there, but we just don't have them. This one was actually one that was in a 1906 book that the Springfield Chamber of Commerce put out. And it was a unique shot because it was shot from the footbridge kind of looking over. So, it always was at the end of Main Street. It always had another rail line that ran in front of it. It expanded and expanded and expanded as years went on. We end up getting the subway, and it's funny. I don't know why they call it a subway, but some of us call it a viaduct, a bridge, whatever you want to call it. But this ability to get under the railroad tracks was put in just a little over, oh gosh, now 116 years ago. This is the clearest picture that we have of the station. This is actually owned by the History Museum on the square. We can see the Ozark Hotel over here in the corner. We see the station. It's a beautiful station. And then, of course, the very busy rail yards. And then this one popped up recently. Now, this is an interesting thing. All of us get excited when we find stuff. And this is a Harry Morgan picture that Wayne Glenn actually inherited from somebody who gave him a bunch of pictures. They didn't know what they were. And they didn't know where this was because they didn't recognize the station. But I saw the station and I knew exactly where it was. And this locomotive actually, and if you're on my history page, and I'll share a link with you when I'm at the end of it. Look up, go there and type in Frisco and put in 44. This locomotive had like 1 million miles on it. It was like the longest running locomotive they ever owned. And it was just an incredible thing. They rebuilt it, and then they kept it for some special events. They finally, unfortunately, scrapped it. Today, another great spot. The only little thing that we had now we have this Frisco alley that kind of runs up that way. So we do have a little extra parking, which is nice, but it would be great to go to a little museum there. Anybody's listening. Now, something dear to my heart is deer. And across the street, and this is something that's kind of cool. We have 2 lots up here on Commercial Street that are empty. And how cool would it be to have one of these lovely beer gardens right on there? It wouldn't take much. Plant some trees, put up some lights, put up some cables. It's good from spring all the way to fall. It'd be a great place to hang out. So in 1870, Mr. Lippert decided he would put a beer garden right there. And it was there for maybe like 5 years. Now we get the only building that was built about the time all this kind of took place is still standing in this building. And it was called the Frisco Opera House. Now, it's not like all the railroaders were in the opera. It's just what they used to call the buildings at the time. And Eurasia Coffee House is in there. If you guys have ever been in there, it's a really cool building, and you can just tell it's of that vintage era. So it's built in 1882. This picture over here was shot around 1889. You can still see the Ozark Hotel over here in the streetcar line. What was interesting about it was it held about 500 to 700 people. And what it was really designed for was for the Frisco engineers, firemen to have their union meetings. It was also a place for them to have their engineer and fireman balls. It was also a place to have people come sing and perform or whatever, because they could come right off the train, do their act, get on the train and leave. This one I've always loved here. Dr. O'Leary's private lecture for men only on the origins of life. I can't imagine what this was like. Now, by this time, this picture is taken at the end of World War I. That station is gone. Everything's gone. The only thing that's really there is the hotel across the street, which is now starting to get dilapidated, and the building that was Eurasia Coffee House and now is a drugstore on the first floor. And that drugstore over there, that building is still standing. It doesn't quite look as the same, but it's similar. And that's going to be in the Commercial Street Hall. So, if you're going to work up here, you're going to live somewhere. And what's interesting, and I tell people all this all the time as a realtor, is that I'm trying to explain to them, did you know Woodland Heights was like the most exclusive neighborhood to live in Springfield? And they all stare at me. And I was like, oh really? Well, it was. And when you look at the etchings that were done on these houses back then, they were spectacular. And a lot of them still are that are standing. They may be covered in vinyl, they may have had some of their gingerbread taken off, but a lot of them, because a lot of people didn't mess them up, still have some beautiful staircases and fireplaces and pocket doors and stuff, and they're just screaming to So we had three main spots in Woodland Heights that were our big neighborhoods outside of the original plot of North Springfield. So in 1887 we did Woodland Heights Edition, and that's basically from Turner down to Chase. Then we did Campbell's Woodland Heights, and that's from High Street down to Atlantic. And then we did the Alves Brothers Woodland Heights, 1889, and that's from Kearney down to High. I have a hard time calling it Kearney, whatever. There's a K there. So people in Springfield need to change that. So Woodland Heights, again, it was an animal unto itself. It had its own shops, it had grocery stores, restaurants, and all sorts of stuff. And it was really a cool place. It had its own streetcar line before the five lines merged together. What was really kind of neat is this place here, and down there at Broadway and Atlantic, there was a place called Woodland Place. It had a really cool entryway. Unfortunately, all of that's gone, but the building's still there. And I thought I'd touch on a few of the houses that are up there, some that are standing and some are not. This one was fascinating to me because this guy was related to Abraham Lincoln. And a lot of us know Lincoln Abstract because a lot of us have old abstracts that say Lincoln Abstract on them. This gentleman actually built the house in 1889, soon after the neighborhood was laid out. And it's still there today. It's a massive house. It needs restoration, but it could be a really cool house to restore. This one here, this one is in phenomenal shape. Now, the Julius and Lily Isomer and Isomer Mills, they were down the street on West Commercial. Massive mill complex. And what was really cool about this family moved into this house and stayed there for 83 years. And that's just not heard of. What's really cool is it's still standing today. About 10-15 years ago, went under a massive restoration. And recently sold. What's interesting from a realtor's perspective is a house like this in Crabtree would be about $350,000. This house sold for like around $170,000. That's how affordable Woodland Heights is. Then we have the Digging Place. Now, there are postcards of this that float around all the time on eBay, and they're just typically two columns. But we got blessed because I found somebody who actually was related to the original developer. Now this runs on Douglas from Chase to Atlantic. And it's really a cool spot. His house, now it was built later, in 1908, 1909. Now, I put these, if you see these two or three different addresses, some of you may or may not know, but in 1948, the city of Springfield bought, because we were growing, they had to shift the addresses around. A lot of them ran east to west, gained like 200. Some actually shrunk, some got bigger. This is really a fun project for me because I'm trying to research houses for people all the time, and I never know what number I'm going to come up with. The Sanborn maps, if you guys are familiar with those, and I've been showing some of these up here, they're not very accurate. So if you look at that Sanborn map and you see numbers on there, don't go by them. Some of the numbers are close, but sometimes when I'm researching these houses and stuff back, it could be third dwelling east of Walnut. Or Walnut east of Nashville. Okay, well now I got to figure out what the third dwelling was in that year. That's crazy, but that's sometimes how they are. So they jump around. If they're on a street, it's on a corner, sometimes they will take the north street, and sometimes they'll take the west street. You just never know which way they're going to go. That's the secret. Well, what's really cool about this picture, even though it's later in 1908, the gentleman actually put electricity and gas in his house. But at this time, this is actually a gas line. It is connected to the gas lamp in the ceiling, and that's how you had your portable lamp on your table. Just put the lamp. Now we're going to do Midtown. Midtown is an interesting animal unto itself as well, because now we're south of the rail yard, we're closer to the city of Springfield, the original city, and we're also closer to Drury, we're going to be closer to Central, and just a lot more things down here. So the houses were big, but there was also a lot of small houses. The lots tend to be smaller. So the first one that we get is of any consequence outside the original plot was 1887, the one that was just up there. And then we get Merriman's in 1886, and this one's from Division down to Lynn. And then they kept coming further down as we got to Chestnut.